So this is going to be a shorter episode than usual. As you may know, I've done quite a few comparisons and reviews of the Sony X3000 recently, and somebody mentioned that I should try out the GoProHero 9 because, you know, I have one. Of course I have one. I'm a nerd. I'm always going to buy the latest tech. So this is what I'm doing. I have with me right now a GoProHero 9 and a Sony X3000, and at the end of this review I'm going to be telling you definitely not to buy one of these. Both cameras are set to wide. Of course GoPro has a wider setting, super wide, but they're both set to wide, both filming in 4K. I thought that was fair to film them both in 4K, albeit the Hero 9 can go to 5K. I don't really see the point of that, and my laptop, my editing software definitely couldn't cope with 5K. Now, right now I've got the stabilization turned on to full on the GoPro, and in the Sony X3000 the stabilization is on active mode, so it's optical stabilization of course in the Sony and digital stabilization in the GoPro, which is supposed to be the finest electronic stabilization in the world, and I've no doubt that it is, absolutely no doubt that it is. But let's test this. I'm going to go for a run. Remember, this is both these cameras in wide mode, active stabilization. Now, I was genuinely running a lot. The camera's moving up and down a lot. How did they fare? Only you can tell, because I can't tell right now. I'll be able to tell until I get back to my computer. And also, how is the picture? How is the 4K turning out? I'm going to put this video in 4K onto YouTube. But what I'm going to do now is something a little bit different. I'm going to switch the GoPro into linear mode, which is the non-fisheye mode, and I'm going to turn on horizon leveling because that's something that I really want to compare to the Sony X3000. Okay, so now we've switched to the linear mode with horizon leveling on the GoProHero 9, still in wide mode on the Sony X3000 because you have to be if you're shooting in 4K, and of course these are still both shooting in 4K. So what happens if I go for a run now? You might be wondering, why is Jay wearing a baseball cap? And that's a very good question, because normally on YouTube, when a guy's wearing a baseball cap, he's usually going bald or a paedophile, or a Venn diagram of those two things, which is almost a circle, some might say. But no, I'm not going bald. The opposite. I have too much hair, as you may notice from my previous videos. I still haven't been to the barber's in almost a year, and it's got a bit crazy, so that's why I'm wearing this cap, because I can't cope anymore. I definitely need a haircut. But anyway, what I'm going to do now is demonstrate what horizon leveling is all about. Okay, so I'm going to now twist the cameras one way and then the other. So I'll twist this way and then I'll twist the other way. Now you can go so far with the GoPro keeping the horizon level before it gives up, like there, and then just switches. But this is what horizon leveling can do for you. And I love the idea of horizon leveling. I think it's a fantastic concept because I am forever getting the horizon wrong. The amount of times I've got back to my computer, looked at the video, and it's all wonky, and then I've had to adjust it in the computer, and that's a real pain to do. Next up, let's test the audio. So this is the audio coming out of the Sony X3000. I've been testing this for a couple of weeks for you now. We all know the audio on the X3000 is absolutely fantastic. These two stereo microphones at the front do a brilliant job, although wind noise can sometimes be an issue, but as long as you're holding the camera reasonably close to you, you can be heard. Now this is the audio coming out of the GoProHero 9. What do you think? Is this any good? Is this better? GoPro have done amazing work in improving their audio over the years, and GoProHero 9 is supposed to be the best of the best when it comes to their audio. And you've got to remember that this camera is fully waterproof. Oh, that's a nice echo. This camera is rugged and fully waterproof in theory. It has other it has other shortcomings, but certainly it's very impressive how hard-wearing and sturdy the GoPro is. Right, time for another running test, but this time I'm going to point the cameras away from me. What do you think? Is the GoPro better in terms of stabilization, than electronic stabilization, than the optical stabilization of this 5-year-old Sony X3000, which, by the way, everybody still loves? Everybody still thinks it's fantastic. It still costs £500 on Amazon. That's a lot more than the GoPro does, and people are still happily buying it. Who stabilized it better? Right, time for a low light test on these two cameras. They are both in auto mode, they are both in wide. The GoPro, I've turned the stabilization down to a minimum. It still has a little bit of stabilization on. It is currently about 10:30, so 2 hours after sunset. Just here in the back garden. It is a moonlit night and I have a couple of street lights nearby, but let's be honest, this is not the kind of scenario where any action camera will do well because they have tiny sensors. Which one is doing better? Which one is showing my face most clearly? Do you know, looking at the screen on the GoProHero 9, it's not doing too badly considering. But then there is a row of streetlights ahead of me. If I turn round with no streetlights ahead of me, how's it doing capturing my face now? Not so good anymore, right? You can't expect miracles. They're action cameras. I'm just sitting on a lock, so that's the sound you could hear. This is what it sounds like on the Sony. And this is what it sounds like on the GoProHero 9. Which of them is doing better getting rid of that sound? And the reason I'm sitting down is because it's time to have some real talk and be very honest about this. My expectation, although I haven't seen the footage yet, is that the GoPro is going to be superior in terms of video quality and in terms of stabilization. I've almost no doubt that's how it's going to turn out. In terms of sound, the Sony is so good, I'm not sure any rugged action camera could beat it in terms of sound quality, but the GoPro is renowned for being exceptionally good despite its ruggedness. But do not buy the GoPro. Absolutely do not, under any circumstances, choose the GoPro over the Sony X3000. It is one of the worst cameras I have ever had when it comes to usability. That's not an exaggeration, it is absolutely atrocious. The amount of times it freezes and you have to redo your take or reshoot a piece of footage, the amount of times when it freezes while charging so it doesn't charge, and you think it's been on charge all day, but actually it's just been sitting there idly wasting your electricity. But worst of all, the absolute worst of all, is the menu system. Now, people do criticise the usability of the Sony X3000, that the menu system is antiquated, it's ancient. Look, it's just a black and white LCD screen on the side, and you have to use physical buttons. Well, do you know what? I'd rather have that than this GoProHero 9, because It's indescribable how frustrating it is using this, especially considering this is supposed to be the top of the range, the creme de la creme, the absolute pinnacle flagship model of GoPro as a brand is the Hero 9, and it's atrocious to use that touchscreen at the back. It's so buggy, it's so laggy. You know, you can press buttons and you can swipe and you can and poke at it, and a lot of the time it will do nothing. And again, I'll remind you, this is the top of the range model as far as GoPros are concerned. So definitely, if it's a choice between the Sony X3000 and the GoProHero 9, you get the Sony X3000. Having said that, don't get the Sony X3000. I've covered this in a video before. Get the DJI Osmo Action. It's less than half the price. It's a far superior piece of technology. It will serve you better in almost every single possible way you can imagine. But huge respect to the Sony X3000, 5 years on, and it's still holding its own against the best action cameras of the modern era. And you know, 5 years is a long time in the technology world, so it is an achievement. It may not sound like it, but it is a huge achievement that it can hold its own still in this era. But then you have to remember that you know, £500, that's a lot of money. Anyway, that's all from me. I hope you found this useful, and I will see you in the next video. Bye now.